Hello everyone. We are so super excited today to have Mr. David Mendelsohn. He's a author and writer for a lot of different kind of books, from stories for children's and also books for teens and adults. Mr. David, thank you for being here today.
It's my pleasure.
So tell us a little bit about you and the history and what is inspired you to start writing.
Our grandson was attending a kindergarten in Purcellville. His mother had to work, and so that arranged for him to be in that school. So it was our job to pick him up after school and then drive him to the store where she was working. It was about a 45-minute drive. So he wanted us to tell him stories. So we started off with some family anecdotes, but we ran out of those. And then I started to make up a story about these three little mice that lived in the White House. And they had they'd explore, they have little different adventures. So every day I would make up a different chapter, and he really enjoyed it. Anyway, the school term ended, and that was that. And then our great-grandson was attending first grade or kindergarten in one of the Leesburg schools, and they had a surprise reader. Usually one of the parents would come in and read a story to the kids, and they never knew who the reader would be. So I volunteered to come in, and I thought I would tell that first chapter of the story, and I did, and the kids were just enthralled, and they sat there for about 30 minutes. Afterwards, the teacher said that she was really surprised that the kids were so attentive, and the story was really good, and I hadn't written it out yet. So she said, "You really should write the story out." So I did. I wrote the book.
What year, is that your first book?
First book.
What year was?
What year?
Yeah, do you remember?
2000 and oh gosh.
That's okay. That's right.
2001, 2002.
Yeah. Okay.
And so when the book was published, I went back to the class and gave her a signed copy of the book. And, that was the first book, and then I kept going. I enjoyed the writing. Mm-hmm. Marketing is tough, but I enjoy the writing.
So I would say, how long you been writing?
Oh, it's about 20 years
20
now,
years.
I guess.
Yep. Have you been always to be a writer? I mean, even when you were young, or this has just come up really like 20 years ago?
Well, when I was in 6th grade in school, the teacher had the whole class write little short stories, and then she selected 2 of the stories that we were going to read to the first graders, and mine was one of the stories selected.
Oh,
so that was good. And then when I was in college, I had to write a short story, and the professor really encouraged me to do more with it, but I didn't really get back to it until I retired, and then had driving Kobe back home. When I told them that anecdote, those stories, then I kept going after that. I enjoy the writing. As I get an idea, and as I move along with the story, some of the characters just seem to develop their own way. I don't always know where it's going to go.
Yeah. So how do you come up with the title of the books? Is that from the story by itself, or how do you come up? Because I look here, and I mean, this is great. Like, you have the white mouse in the White House, Rush the Bluebird and the Painted Bunting, the Journey of Moses and Polaris. And this is, we're talking here for story for children, but also for adults and teens, The Seventh Sword of Isis, The President Won't Go, A Murder at Pina Grove, Lake Mayo.
Yeah.
So how did you come up with the title of those?
Well, it's based on the story, and then I tried to have a title that will be appealing to the readers. So if I'm at a book fair and I have the books on display, hopefully the title will catch their eye and they might pick up the book and start to thumb through it. And so we do okay at the book fairs.
Oh, okay. All right. That's great. And when you are writing, what did you think? What's the most difficult about writing for you was?
I guess correcting all my spelling mistakes, and my editor hates my use of commas. She lectures me on them. She's really tough. She gave me a 5-page explanation of how to use commas, and I really got. The more she tries to help me with it, the more confused I get. So when I'm writing, I have a thought and I try to get it down quickly.
Yeah.
And then I have to go back and correct the spelling errors and the punctuations. That's my process, though.
Yeah, yeah. And is that any before, like, is that a lot to do? Is that a lot to do when you're writing, like before and after, when you say like that, like the idea on writing? Is that difficult to write, or you just got the idea and just writing it on the paper?
Well, every author has their own way of handling
Absolutely.
it. And then they talk about hitting the wall, where you just get stuck and can't move further. I haven't really experienced that. I get an idea, like with I wrote a book called Rush the Bluebird and the Painted Bunting. What happened was, it was about 2 years ago in January, and painted bunting appeared near the Potomac Falls. It's a bird, a beautifully colored bird that hardly ever comes up to this area. It usually stays south. It's a tropical bird. So everybody got excited and rushed over there with cameras and binoculars. And so I got to thinking, I was wondering why did this bird get up here? What's it going to do up here? And then I got a storyline developed of this painted bunting and a young bluebird who become friends and work together. They work together to combat some bullies at the bird feeder. They have some adventures together. So it kind of gels after a while, but it takes me a while to kind of roll the idea around and try to come up with a storyline. But once I start typing, as I work on the story, I find it's fun to write.
You enjoy it.
Yeah,
You
I
enjoy
don't know where it's going to go, and what ideas are going to come up, and yeah, it's I like it.
Yeah.
I have one story about an evil person who becomes president in 2024. Not name it. It's not a real person. It's just fictitious.
Yeah.
And he gets elected and decides instead of waiting until January 20th for it to be inaugurated, he decides he wants to move into the White House immediately. And he goes before the Supreme Court, and the court decides he can begin by December 1st. So there's a little line where President Biden tells his wife, "I'm so really disappointed. I wanted to have our last Christmas in the White House." So that just came in. I thought that was kind of funny.
Funny story to write on. Where do you see the book industry heading in the next decade?
There's a huge market in self-publishing, which is what I do. So I prepare the story, the book, and edit it, make sure it fits into the right templates, and then I send them off to Amazon. They have a publishing affiliate, and they publish the book, and then I purchase the books from them. It includes their fees. The prices also include shipping and handling, so it pushes the price up a bit. but I see many more people are becoming self-publishing. It's an easy way to go.
Yeah. How many books have you written?
I think about 20, I guess.
20.
Yeah, it's still going.
Any book favorite? Any favorite book you did write and you say this book was so special for me, or like it is your favorite?
The book Rush, the Bluebird and the Painted Bunting. They tell me that's my best book. And
I gotta buy that. I gotta buy today this book to read it.
It's a great book for children, teachers and parents, and the young readers have all enjoyed it and recommended it.
Mm-hmm. Are you planning? What is next for Mr. David? Where are you planning to continue? Do you have any plan for any other book to write soon?
When I was a kid, I had polio. This goes back to the late 1940s. That was before the Salk vaccine was developed. Polio was one of the most frightening diseases of that era, and it usually occurred in the summer, and adults also became infected. And the terrible part of it was that you could become, you lost muscle use, you could become paralyzed, and a number of people passed away from it. So it was pretty scary. And I was at a summer camp. It was towards the end of the season. I think they were ready to close the camp, and I got really sick. It was like a terrible head cold, and I just felt my whole body ill. So I was driven home by a relative, and when I was home, I started walking around a little bit. I found I couldn't lie still in bed because it became too restless, and so I would get up and walk a little bit, and my parents noticed I was limping. So the doctor examined me, and the next thing I know, I was in New York hospital, and I was in the polio ward. I just ended up with a loss of a muscle in the left leg, but there were a lot of kids there in iron lungs, and a lot of people in much worse condition than I was. And I'm thinking about writing that up at the next book.
As a storybook.
Yes.
So always your books is a story happened to you, or you heard and you thought that this would be a good idea to put it on, basically on writing and on paper and on book. This is great.
Yeah, I mean, like the book, The 7 Swords of Isis.
Yeah.
I wrote that many years ago. It was about a virus that the terrorist group weaponized and brought it into the United States, and then it spread. They had several people who brought it in, and then spread it throughout the United States. This was way before the COVID virus hit us, caused so much misery. But I wasn't sick. It was just an idea that I had.
Nice. Where do you give advice for any new writer right now? What advice do you give them?
Well, I belong to a writers group where we live, and the advice we give to everyone is just keep writing. You just keep plugging away at it. Sometimes if you're stuck, you can ask other writers what their opinion is, what they think you should do, but just keep working at it. And for me, it's writing is fun, and it keeps me out of my wife's hair, and keeps me busy so I don't get in trouble at home. But marketing is tough.
Yeah. Oh yeah. For anything, it's not only for.
Right. We have book fairs that come up occasionally.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, do you do kind of fair? How often, and where we can find this? How we will know?
Well, the Cascades Library has a nice special book fair. it's I guess with Eat and Read. They have several food trucks that are there. They get about 30 or 40 authors. It's an outdoor event. I think it's usually held in the
October.
October, right. And we've usually had nice weather, although sometimes it's been pretty windy.
Yeah.
And we get a big turnout there. And I chat with a number of people, and usually we sell a nice number of books. And it's a nice afternoon.
Yeah. And also we can find all of your books on Amazon.
Yes.
And also on Kindle.
Right.
And I will make sure to put some of the title of the storybooks on the post. Mr. David, we appreciate you and thank you for coming here and share your
pleasure.
20 years of writing.
Right.
And we are looking forward to see what next and what books will be the next. I have a list of your adult books here. I will be probably purchasing, some of them and read them. And I will, of course, put some nice review for you. So.
The polio book is actually a book about fun in the hospital.
Yeah.
I was a kid. After the first week, the contagious period had passed. Then it was just recuperation. And they had a large heated swimming pool that we would go in. The theory was warm heat might bring the muscles back. We had wheelchair races. I mean, for a kid in the hospital, it wasn't bad at all.
Yeah.
We had one day where a middle-aged man with using a cane came into the ward that we were in, and he looked around. He said, "What ward is this?" We said, "Polio." He dropped the cane and ran right out.
Wow. Thank you very much, Mr. David, for being here. Thank you.
With you.
Thank you. And you take care.
I will.
Thank you so
I will.